ဟုတ်ကဲ့မိဘပြည်သူတွေအားလုံးမင်္ဂလာပါလို့နှုတ်ခွန်းဆက်တာပါတယ်
Dear public, Minglaba to all of you. It is our regular Sunday People's Goal talk. We welcome you from this program. In building the federal democracy country, it is very important to learn the principle of the federalism. When we build the federation, it is important to discuss the Burma unit, its potential and its challenges. It's very important to have the conversation around that. We invite all the distinguished um, experts and speakers to discuss this important issue. It is very important for our member of public to learn and to talk about the federalism. So we create this platform in order to discuss all the diverse opinions and visions. People are critical to play their role in contributing the success of the revolution, and it is also important that the member of public understand the principle of a federalism. So the public important, the public conversation, the public comment are all welcome in this platform. We had the federal topic for the first time last year. This is the second round of the federal topic that we have this conversation with the title The Burma Unit, Its Potential, and the Challenges. We have three panelists, Dalit, Nancy, Moneli. I will serve as your moderator. Now you. If you have any particular questions, comment, please write them in the comment box or raise your hand. I would like to introduce you with the speakers. First, Moneli, Minglaba to you. Minglaba, please introduce yourself. I am Moneli. I am a Kachin woman. I am participating in this conversation, this dialogue, on behalf of the spokesperson of the Women League of Burma. Next, I would like to invite Rose for your introduction. The floor is yours. Minglawa to all of you. I am Rose. I am from AFCC-Mandalay. I represent it, and I will participate in this dialogue as a panelist. Sia Dalit, please introduce yourself as well. Minglawa to all of you. I am Dalit. I am ex-military personnel. I am very much interested in federalism, so I will be the panelist in today's conversation. Thank you very much. You are ex-military man, right? So I kind of wonder why your name being Dalit, if you could explain it about a little bit. So I invite you to tell to the member of the public why you call yourself Dalit. Well, Dalit is an Indian name actually. Dalit is the lowest of the caste. So why I name myself with this one? It's because of a particular reason. Our member of military personnel faced discrimination in military institution, very much like the society construction in India. In India, the lowest of a class is called Dalit, and this lowest class community just accept that they are lowest of everyone. They did not question it. They do not realize their rights. It's very much the same in the military institution. So in the military, you just take order. You don't question. You don't have critical thinking. So you are just to be obedient. So in the military, the soldier got discriminated, the family of a soldier got discriminated. They do not question, they just take order from above. So what happened is that even if you leave the military, even if the family of the soldier leave the military, then you still have this kind of attitude that you see yourself as the lowest of the society. So it's very much like intentional structure of the dictatorship that they use this kind of discrimination. So Dalit actually names the lowest of a class. So I intentionally take this name. So what happened is that in the military, the soldier were treated as the lowest class of the society, like they have in India. So that's why I call myself Dalit as my name. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your explanation. Indeed, you are correct. The soldier, the member of a soldier, are treated as the lowest of the class, lowest of the community. So even the victim of a discrimination accept their life as it is. And I noticed that it is very much similar phenomenon that they have in India in the community. So thank you very much. So I would like to start our first round of conversation. I would like to invite Siada Lit to start with our conversation. You, being the ex-military member, I would like to ask you, what is federalism? What should be the criteria of the federal unit? If you would explain as much as you understand. And I also want you to answer what is your opinion regarding the potentials of Burma unit in federation, the future federation. Thank you very much.
ကျွန်တော်တို့အားလုံးနားလည်သဘောပေါက်ပြီး
For me, when we talked about federalism, federalism is all about equality. Equality is one of the value of the federation that it's to be built in the federation. So the sense of equality is to be built. Why we have to build the equality deliberately? Because there was no equal situation in Myanmar. And federalism is the system that allocate and manage the diversity. That is what I understand as the federation. If we looked at Myanmar, there are uh, two difference and natural difference that we have in Myanmar. We are not the same. We are different in terms of our racial background. We are born with it. We cannot choose your own race, right? So, I mean, it is the natural phenomenon. So, you are born with a specific face. So, we have the racial diversity in Myanmar. That is quite a difference that we can see in Myanmar. And we have a geographical difference in Myanmar. We have a plain, we have hills, and we have coastline, and we have beaches. So based on all the geographical differences, the way that we live, the way that we earn our money, all different. So all of that has the impact on the political perspective. So basically, all these differences were used as the reason for the discrimination, then that is the start of all the problem. That is what's happening in our country. So in order to eliminate all the discrimination, this is to say that we have to um, enhance the equality, then we need to have a federation. We need to have a federalism. In order to have a federalism, we need to have a federal units. So when we build the federal units, then it is very important to have the conversation around that. So the creation or the establishments of the federal units, it's first and foremost the most important one. Without talking about the federal units, you cannot talk about the power sharing, you cannot talk about self rule, you cannot talk about share rules. So, according to my understanding, federal units can be established based on racial perspective. Federal units can be based on geographical perspective, and the federal unit can be established with the hybrid of racial perspective and as well as the geographical perspective. So this is how federal units are established or organized, as far as I understand. In order to illustrate you, we have the the coastline, so people live along that, so they will need to have the um, fishing livelihood, so they need to have the fishing law in order to live with that. But that fishing law may not be applicable for the people in Kachin where they have jade mining, right? So we have differences in terms of geographical perspective. We have differences in terms of our racial background. So we need to have the federal unit that would reflect all of that differences. For our future, we need to think of the um, ethnic base, the federal unit, as well as geographical base at federal unit. We now have the 7 states and regions. 7 states is based on ethnic composition, and we have 7 regions. That 7 region does not reflect the 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 ethnics, but just the geographical perspective. We have Mandalay, Magui, Tanindai, Yangon, Bago, etc., etc. So these are based on the geographical location. So for our future, we need to reorganize the federal unit. So it is very important to have the Burma unit. Why Burma unit? It is very important to build the federal spirit, the federal attitude. So, in order to build the federal spirit and federal value, it is very important to have the Burma unit. It is very important to have the national identity, right? The national identity is it's the beginning of everything. We are to have the flag, we are to have the anthem, so everything it's to be reflected. Um, all of these are to be reflected with the our identities. We have Kachin. Kachin has Manao. Kachin has the the Kachin flag, and they have this swords as their symbolic uh, national identity. Kaya has the same, and Kayin has the same. Kayin has its own drum as their identity symbol. But for Burma, we don't have our own symbolic identity for various reasons. So for Burma unit never had their national identity for all sort of discrimination. So having all sort of this um, their national identity lost. What they do is that they use the whole country identity as the Burma identity, which is a very dangerous thing. Burma unit has to have their own Burma national identity. So it is very important to have Burma national identity and Burma unit in the future federation. So it would be too good to be true if all 7 regions are to combine as one Burma unit. It would be just too good to be true. But then again, in in middle part of Myanmar, the dry zone might have a specific geographical unit because they share these similar characteristics. So I'm just thinking along with the future direction of the unit establishment. So having this kind of thinking, the policy, consistency, compatibility, and feasibility will be there so that the future would be compatible and feasible and manageable, in my opinion, in that way. Thank you very much. That it's my ambition or vision that I am thinking out loud. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your thought in terms of your viewpoints regarding the need to have the Burma unit, Burma national identity in the future as well. And I also would like to encourage the participant to write up your comments, your questions while you are following the discussions of the panelists. Next, I would like to invite the second speaker. Now, the second speaker is Siama Rose. Rose, you are the leader of the Youth Strike group. So, in this Spring Revolution, in this youth revolution, everyone is calling for the future federation. So, what would be your viewpoints in terms of the future federation direction and the potential of the Burma unit? Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Yes, first of all, in the current revolutionary context, what revolutionary context is demanding or calling for? So during COP, we need to consider the people perception for the early days of the COP. What is the aspiration of the public is very simple: to restore the democracy. After they got arrested, the elected members, and by the arbitrary coup, and they are also not complying their own 2008 constitution. That's why revolutionary force and all the peoples are demanding to restore the democracy, and with along the protests, the political literacy landscape has been changed a lot from the beginning, and people, they have their own desire of the future union that they want to live for. For example, at the beginning, in the revolutionary force, the 2000 constitution is just a showcase and just a sham federal, and that's why they are pushing to abolish that 2008 constitution. So since throughout the history, it's quite difficult to have a common position between Burma and non-Burma communities because of the propagandas or the doctrine, military doctrines, and that chauvinism, that Burmanization that military has been uh, putting forward. But after the Spring Revolution, many Burma start also accepting, even though they are Burma, they are also equal. They start realizing they get some privilege compared to other ethnic communities. That's why there's no equality and equality in a country. That's why for the future federal union, we need a federal system that grant the equality between different ethnic groups. As you has asked, what kinds of future federal look like? One thing for sure is that the people want to restore the democracy, and they are firm on that, on the same page. And for the federal, there's some open discussion still yet to organize regarding with the federal, to decide what kinds of federal arrangement and structure we're going to establish, what kinds of federal unit, what kinds of representation will grant for the self-determination of each ethnic minorities, and at the same time, for Burma, majority Burma ethnic. In the past, we don't have Burma state, and the Burma characteristic is not uh, quite strong like other ethnic community, other ethnic nationalities. That's why to establish Burma state in the future federal unit, there would be another level of political literacy that we need to push for. Right now, all the revolutionary force uh, has unanimously agree and have a common and consensus that we need to ensure the future federal union that grant the equality between Burma and non-Burma nationalities based on the human right principle, and to embrace full principle of human rights by ensuring equality through the state constitution that allow sub-autonomy and self-determination, greater self-determination for ethnic or federal unit and federal state to have a durable peace and sustainable union, unlike 1947, which are not fulfilling the characteristic of federal characteristic. Then the conflict may arise in the future again. That is the common perception people have among themselves, and the whole public and the revolutionary force are also contributing their best to find the best political solution for the country. As a Burma nationalities, so, what is my perception on the establishing of Burma state? As other speaker has said, whether federal will based on nationality or by geographically, or whether we'll make a mix one. We cannot forget the history of the historical context of the country. When we talk about federal, there are two competing agenda. One is a national based federal. If we are going to meet a geopolitics rather than ethnic. So when we look back the 70 years in the past, the equality and self-determination demanded by the ethnic minority demanding for 70 years would be neglected if we don't recognize. So we cannot destroy those struggles of the 7 decades long struggles of other ethnic nationalities and their revolutionary history by we cannot substitute with the Spring Revolution to their struggle, but we need to find a better structure and arrangement to establish a federal unit that will grant the equality and self-determination as a Burma nationality. We need to have a Burma state. Other ethnic community has their own national characteristics and identities and state identities, but Burma don't have state identity and national identity like other ethnic community, other ethnic nationalities. We will not want to bring back the chauvinism that has been there all the time. If we don't have a Burma state, we will always fall back to the Burmanization that has been uh, framed all the time by the military. That's why we need to have a Burma state or Burma unit. By looking at the history and by the geographical, we cannot just establish a federal unit based on the geographical geopolitics. We also need to look at other national, other historical contexts of other ethnic nationalities, including Burma and others. Maybe it will be 12 states with like national 12 national state or what? How can we come up with a better federal arrangement, federal system with a better federal system, future federal system? So we have been enjoying those privilege as a Burma, even though we don't know, knowingly or not knowingly, we have been enjoying those privileges. If we want to have a holistic and durable union, we need to find the best possible federal structure. And the characteristic of federalism, which is a division of power, and we'll be able to those division of power should be able to guarantee the self-determination and equalities. It would be better, if we can come up with the interim constitution that can guarantee the self-determination and equality of all ethnic nationalities. Siama, thank you so much for your discussion point. So, your perception, yes, we need a Burma state to be established, and for the whole union, we need to have a better federal unit and arrangements by extensive consultation and discussion between stakeholders. And after you listen to what Siama has been discussed, if you have a comment or if you want to share any feedback, you can also share and comment. Please feel free to do so if you have a feedback or comment or question. For that, I would like to invite another speaker, which is Siama Munneli. I would like to invite Siama Munneli. So what I would like to ask Siama Munneli is that what is the essence of federal union? What is the federal union of ethnic nationalities, and what is the role of ethnic state?
ဆိုတော့ဒီ Federal လို့ပြောလို့ရှိရင်
Well, when we talked about federalism, the understanding of people can be very different, right? If we look at Myanmar, whenever we talked about federalism, it was not that long. For Burmese people talking about federalism, but non-Burma people have talked about federalism for quite some times already. By the time this union was created, the ethnic leaders tried to build federal country then. Well, in terms of federalism, it is all about collective leadership. No one is above the other one. So the political equality is to be based to build the federalism. Self-determination is very, very important. So when we talked about federalism, these are the three values that are critical to be there. For non-Burmese
ဒီ Federal ဆိုတဲ့
people, the ethnic people talked about federalism for many, many years. They talked about federal unions. They talked about federal democratic union. Whenever they use these words, they talked about equality. They mean equality. Equality, it's fair. Equality, it's about everyone, it's the same. When we talked about equality, to be specific, we want to have a political equality. When we looked at Myanmar historical context, one can observe the diversity. Among the diversity, the power is controlled by a specific group of people. And when we talked about diversity in Myanmar in the past, a specific group of people create all sort of communal conflict and instability. So before 1947 Penlon Agreement, there were many ethnic groups at the lower part of Myanmar. Mon, for example, were there. Kayin, for example, were there. But they were not treated equally. They were controlled. They were not giving rights. So after all this accumulation, after all this time, country became more and more unstable. When we looked at the Penlon Agreement, Kachin, Rani, Shan, Chin were treated as the free unit of the union. They are different in terms of ethnicity, their geographical situation. But when it come when it came in building the union, they contributed to build one nation, one identity. So this is something that we all must not ignore. So after all this time, we had the longest civil war in the human history. Let's put this way. So we want to have justice, we want to have peace, we want to have freedom, we want to have rule of law, we want to have equality, we want to have human rights. So all of these are to be the building blocks of the federalisms, and it is also critical to have the self-determination in the federations as well. And at the same time, at the union level, things are being discussed right at this moment. But then again, it is also important to have conversation at this unit level. So there are legislature, executive, judiciary, everything has to be in the hands of the unit. And another thing is that the ethnic city, it is to be enhanced, it is to be ensured that the the existence of the ethnic cities are to be respected and acknowledged as well. And whenever we talked about the Burma people, their culture, their identity, their existence are all, how shall I put it? Were not, they were not, these were not um, given um, freely to be exercised as well. It is the same for the non-Burmese people as well. All of these were not allowed to exercise freely as well. So it is very important to protect the people and the people in the unit as well. Whenever we talk about federalism, it is all about self-determination. It is all about self-rule. It is all about autonomy. So then again, people have this wrong attitude that, well, you know what, a particular unit will be too rich and a particular unit will be just too poor if it would be such case. But I would say no. It is all about sharing and it is all about working together. It is all about coordination as well. So all of these developments are important to be discussed at the unit level as well as the union level. So in order to have all this synchronizedly happening, it is very important to have the conversation ongoing in order to design the federalisms as well. And the minority rights, it's very important to discuss at the unit level and the local people rights are at the same time very important to discuss as well. All of these are to be happen in balance. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution, and it is very interesting to learn from you regarding the political equality. Whenever we talked about federalism, you mentioned about the self-determination. You talked about the sense of a freedom as well, and you also talked about justice in conjunction with the equality, and you discussed quite broadly in this perspective. Thank you very much. And the unions is the collection of the state. That is what the literal meaning of the union in Myanmar as well. So the state has to have its own sovereignty um, in 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 its own in contributing in the federations as well, so that it would be the true unions as well. So if you have any particular questions to this panelist, also please write them down in the Q&A boxes, and we will start the second round of our discussion. At the end of the second round of the discussion, we will have the specific Q&A session for everyone. Without further ado, I would like to invite Siama Rose. I have a specific question to you. We talked about federalism. We talked about the need to have the Burma unit, and people have different opinions around that. And now the opinion regarding the Burma unit for Burma people might be different from the opinion of the need of a Burma unit by the ethnic perspective. And but nevertheless, in order to have the Burma unit, if it would be there, what would be the challenges to have the Burma unit? Thank you very much.
So people perception on the federal is different, but the ultimate goal for each and individual is quite the same, even though we have a different perception on federal unit formation. But at least there would be a equality between different federal unit that embrace diversity and different, and toward the development with a better political policy and development policy in free and independent and decision-making process for their own affair. And that kinds of federal, in order to establish that kinds of federal union, that is the ultimate goal of each and every individual. We have a common goal to establish a federal union that grandly based on such values. What is the best state formation? what would be the most practical and logical formation of states and units. We are still consulting, negotiating, and compromising and discussing what would be the best ways of formulation. As other colleague has said, based on the history of Myanmar, there are two perceptions for the future Myanmar. Whether we'll just base the state formation based on the geographic, or are we going to establish federal union based on nationalities? And based on that two perception, in recent years, between different ethnic, we couldn't neglect it. Minority among minority. When we are aiming for the national-based federal union, so in Myanmar, Burma are majorities and quite widespread. And for example, like in Myanmar, we have a 7 state and 7 region, and those 7 regions are populated mostly by Burma majority nationality. That's why if we are we cannot form all those 7 regions into one Burma state. So I think we need to compromise by this compromising between these two competing perceptions on geographical, geopolitical base and national base federal unit. So there are many challenges, still a lot of challenges out there. How we're going to form our nation in a future federal union. The area populated by majority of Burmas. So the forming 7 regions into Burma state is not realistic because the area is very big. If we combine 7 regions, so that is something we need to consider and find a way. Some of the Burma people also express their views that if we are going to establish Burma state, that are we going to give away some of the area that's largely populated by Burma ethnic nationality. So when we talk about federal, there are federal principles, and if we can agree on principles and values of the federal, there is something we should not worry about who give what and who take what. That is not the case. If we really understand the essence and principle and value, for example, like we established as a guy and Magoi, and what into Burma state, and what about the other region? Rather than worrying for the thing that is not coming yet, we should focus more on how we are going to divide the power equally. For example, in Magui, the economical landscape in Magui is different with Yangon, and the same goes to Chin. But how we can bring all different region and state develop together in the same pace, and how the federal government will enforce. There will be 10 region or 12 region or 20 region, but equality is the key. Rather than Burma get $1 and others take $1, rather than that, based on the needs, and federal government need to give less or give more to certain region and certain state, to reinforce by the federal essence. Whether we will give away this land, those land, who will take what, who will give what, that is not the case that we should concern. We should face the problem and practically and in most logical way. Rather than that area, then we would be able to overcome the area determination or designation of area for whom. So for the federal, according when we look at the history, federal is quite a new concept for many Burma people because they have been brainwashed by the military that federal is a secession. That's why the Burma understanding on the federalism may be limited. But during this revolution, for non-Burma majority, Burma are also trying to be able to speak freely about a federal like other non-Burma ethnic nationalities. So if federal grantees self-determination or self-autonomy, how are we going to divide the power? How we are going to run the election? And how we can ensure the meaningful representation and what system we need to establish to ensure those. And that is, we need to have a constant and continued discussion and consultation and building mutual understanding and building up our political literacy. And when we are going to discuss about how to form the federal units by open and practical and logical approach. But the largest obstacle would be that for Burma, they don't have that national identity like other ethnic have. Other ethnic nationality they have a strong national identity, but Burma don't have that yet. So as for Burma nationality, they don't have their own flag, they don't have their own anthem, they don't have their own identities like other. When we talk about Burma, when we talk Burma and Myanmar are confused. We are Burma, they are Myanmar. Or whether Burma are not ethnic, and they are ethnic, we are ethnic, because Burma don't have that kinds of strong sense of national identities like other ethnic nationalities. So that's why Burma need to come up with a strong national sense of national identities like other ethnic nationalities. This could be one of the biggest challenges. Burma has very limited in the collective leadership. For other ethnic nationality, they have their own collective, institution with the collective leadership. But for Burma, we don't have a history of collective leadership like other ethnic nationality. Burma are spreading. There's no one entity that can represent the whole Burma. We don't have that kinds of entity that represent the whole Burma nationalities like other ethnic. That is one of the challenges. Okay, let's say if we form Burma state, who would represent, who would decide the fate of the Burma people? This is one of the challenges and obstacles we are likely to face right now among the Burma revolutionary force. So the leaders and their influence, largely influence on the structure and their perception, and those who hold leadership position and their perception and their understanding on the leadership or on the federal is very influential because in Myanmar, it's likely to idolism is quite widespread among Burma people. They like to worship idol, and that kinds of idolism is quite widespread and follow their leaders. Whether right or wrong, they just follow. Between it's those Burma leaders, they are very influenced, and what they say, what they do, have largely influenced. So that's why how Burma state would turn out is largely based on how the leader will assume that position in the federal unit. When we are going to form a federal unit or to establish Burma, uh, including Burma and other ethnic, what kinds of political commitment are we going to implement? There are many history in the past. We have talked a lot about in 1947. We talk about federal, but that is a sham federal. Only brought up doubts and mistrust between people. When we talk about what grandee out there and to what extent Burma will comply those commitments, and to what extent, and what is the perception of the whole Burma community. So when we are in the federal establishment, it is a quite big a challenge and obstacle for Burma. When we are this the some of the precondition or given context that we need to consider when we are thinking to form Burma state. But how are we going to handle in the best way? So this is the political problem, and that's why solving political problem with a political way is the most effective, efficient, with less collateral damage. Like currently, we have a NUCC with a very good collective leadership, and to ensure more NUCC is more inclusive, or and broaden their scopes. And Burma also need to mobilize themselves to be better represent through political ways and building a commitment to achieve the union that we are aiming for. It need to be pragmatic and practical. We need to put our effort more on the political solutions that will grant the sharing of power, division of power, and self-autonomy and determination, and that grant they are also to an extent judicial independent. We should allow, when there are a dispute between different federal units. So when we have a federal unit, to have a better unifications that will grant the equality and more proportionate representations for the future nation building. Thank you. It is very interesting, Sima. Your perception is, as you have discussed, when we are going to form federal unit, how we are going to establish Burma unit, and what are the concerns, what are the challenges and obstacles, what are the challenges that we need to consider. But if we are going and sticking to the political dialogue and political solution and political approach to walk towards the federal union that grant the equality between nationalities, ethnic nationalities. So based on that, the essence of federalism for ethnic nationalities, and they are also demanding, and they are also calling out to form a Burma state. But and we need to have a mutual understanding and to understand the difficulties of each other. And the essence, one of the essence of the federalism is, to bring the ruling closer to the people. That is as one of the essence of federal. When we are forming a state federal unit based on the geographical or populations and concentration of different ethnic nationalities, self-determination, self-autonomy, and and equality. If we based on these three principles, many of our problems likely to occur in the future may be solved. And with the second part discussions of similar roles, if you have any perception or any comment or feedback or question you would like to make, please feel free to give it. And I would like to invite the next speaker. I would like to invite Sia Dalit for the next round of discussion. And for the FCCDC second draft of the constitution, with that FCDCC second draft, what kinds of federal formation or unit formation were suggested are suggested in that second draft of the FCDCC federal principle constitutions, and is there any challenges or any other contact that in concern that we need to consider in forming future federal unit? Thank you.
Well, all right. For the draft of the constitution, there is this national state as the terminology used there. So it is refer um, to the ethnic base state unit. So for the future union, based on the political science, um, there are consideration in terms of the national 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 base unit and geographical base unit. So all of this essence are there in this draft constitution. So we have this ethnic base state, right? So when it comes to ethnic base state, um, it is referred to particular places where there are many ethnics. For example, in Cayenne would be there, other people would be there. In Tanindai area, you will have Dawe, Bait, Cayenne, Mon. People are there. In that area, there are Pashu who lived for generations. So these are all diversity. So for that, there is the national unit and another features there in this draft constitution. It's the clause about setting up new unit and how to set up the new units are there as well. Well, creating the new units, it's very important to be mentioned because people migrate. Due to the people migration, particular group of people might be increased, particular group of people might be decreased as well, depending on the time, depending on the context. It is important to have the clause about the creation of a new unit. So in many federation, this clause are there. And in India, there are 29 states. They started it with 14. So in Switzerland, they had new unit based on the referendum. So in the federation, it is important to mention about the creations of a new unit and the procedures of that are to be mentioned as well. So the how to create the new federal units is through the referendum. So in the FDCC, the FDCC, it's written based on the collective discussion from all various leaders. So they also include the perspective of the whole union, and there are practical values. There are uh, there are there are quite some values around that. That is my personal opinion. Now, talking about Burma unit. Well, for majority of the Burmese people,
ဆိုတဲ့အရာနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကရေဘူးဆန်ဆန်တတ်မှတ်ကြတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ကျွန်တော်
we generally see them
ဗမာလူမျိုးစုတွေကိုနိုင်က
as the group of people who are privileged. But then again, for the Burmese people themselves,
စတင်ရတဲ့ကလေးတယောက်ရဲ့သင်ကြား
they might not realize that there are um, there are inequalities among the Burma people as well. So in the Burma area, the people, the children at the town and the children in the rural area do not enjoy the access to education. So it is very important to realize that all of these unequal situations can be addressed through the structure of the federation. So the needs and the challenge of different location can be very different. So for example, in the rural area, access to education might be problem in the rural area, in the border area, but whereas in the middle part of Myanmar, access to education might not be the problem, but rather the quality of the teacher might be the problem. So all of these problem and all of these um, issue can be addressed at their local level if there would be federations as well. So the Burma people education, the Burma people problem of the education can be addressed through their Burma unit if they've got one. So in US, the education is treated as the primary responsibility of the state government. So in the American Constitution, so all of these schools are to be shared the same standards, right? So the quality control is there, the service accessibility is there. So when we talked about federalism, equality is the most important thing in building the equality. The equality has to be built across the units and as well as among the public. So, in building equality among the federal units, it is important to have the Burma unit first. Why I say so? It's because of a particular situation. Now we are talking about equality. In building the equality, the Burma people need to have the representing unit. Only then equality can be built. Well, when we talked about Burma unit, we are not talking about all the Burma are to migrate to that specific Burma unit location. No, I don't mean that. Well, what I mean by that is that there would be Burma people in specific places, and there are also Burma people as a minority in the other states as well, and their problem might not be the same. So the differences might be should be dealt at their specific local areas as well. And another thing that I would like to talk about in terms of the advantages of having the Burma unit has to do with the resource sharing. So we have a lot of oil field in the middle part of Myanmar. So in the middle part of Myanmar, the oil field cannot generate enough works for employment for the Burma people there due to the bad management. So all these Burma people are to migrate other places such as big city in Yangon to find the proper employment. If there would be the federation, there will be self-determination, there would be equality. So with this kind of instrument, all these sort of development issue questions can be answered as well. So now building the federal units are to be built based on the ethnic perspective, geographical perspective, the perspective with both factors combined in. So, in my opinion, it is very important to talk about building all sort of uh, units.
စနစ်တွေစိုးရင်စိတ်တွေတော့ဒါပေမဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့
And in terms of the challenges in creating the units, yes, there are stereotype concern. There are all sort of judgment. There are all sort of uh, bias happened there. So whenever we talked about Myanmar, we talked about 7 states and 7 regions as our stereotype consideration. This is to, I mean, be thought of differently. We have to think innovatively. So you need to be brave enough in coming up with a new ideas. So we are talking about the new future. The new future is the new form. In terms of talking about the new forms, new structure, you have to be brave enough. So you should not tie yourself in the box of 7 states and 7 regions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution in this conversation. It is very insightful and you provoke quite a lot of idea for us to think. So you talked about the need to have re reallocate the boundaries of the existing states and region. You need to be brave enough in thinking that direction. Thank you very much. And I would like to welcome the people, the audience, to share your comment or your opinions regarding to this panelist as well. And we will have the Q&A section soon. At that time, you may raise your hand in raising your point or commenting your point. But for now, I would like to invite the last panelist for the second round of our conversation. And to you, I have the specific question. What is the federal unit mentioned in the draft FDCC? We are building our federal future. What we need to do in participating this future journey. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the further democratic chat developed by the adopted and declared by adopted by the CRPH. When we talk about the charter, in order to start the reform, when we are going to transform a country, charter, the role of charter is very important. What would you do after the revolution? There should be a roadmap. In brief, the charter is briefly highlight about what they are going to do in brief. But in the current charter, I think it's quite comprehensive, not in brief. There are also many uh, aspiration and so very ambitious. I would say very ambitious based on the historical lesson they have learned. Different group had different concerns, and that's why they are worried and concerned. That's why they try to put everything in a charter in great detail rather than a brief charter. But there are many good, but it is good though, and that's why it's become a long charter with the common agreement and consensus of the different stakeholders. Toward the formation of Burma, including the formation of Burma state and other, maybe it also very important to bring up new states for other different ethnic nationalities who has been neglected for so long. That's the issue and agenda that we need to continuously discuss in the future. When you look at the federal democratic charters and their goal and their objective of the charter are quite encouraging, and especially it's not just referring to the military dictatorship. They also highlight all forms of authoritarian, not only military dictatorship. Some are becoming dictatorship by guns, and some are by power, some are by the economic strength and the financial strengths to become a. So that's why the charter said all forms of authoritarian. That goal is very important and significant for our country. And on the other hand, people are talking about 2008 constitution is completely abolished. That is also a great move, I would say. And when we look at the charter, the roadmap we can see the clear roadmap, political roadmap in this charter. Some of the issues are quite important, but there are still some area that still need to explore more in depth. But here there's one very interesting and important thing is in the charter is about a vision, I would say, political vision for the further democracy toward the federal constitution. And what are the given context or what homework we need to get done towards the federal constitution. That is very interesting and very good. To bring to bring a justice and free and fair, to bring equality and justice for the people. And the objectives are very clear, and the political visions are also very clearly mentioned in those charter. And we can also see principle, all the value and principles there in the charter. It clearly mentioned about the when we start talking about further democracy, we need to have a full essence of democratic principles. At the same time, whether gender equality, human rights are also on a highlight, on a first priority, on a first highlight. That is very encouraging. And as secondly, for ethnic nationalities, to ensure ethnic nationalities equality and self-determination, to ensure equality and self-determination for ethnic nationalities, clearly mentioned in the charter. One interesting thing is that they claim to go for the collective leadership, rather than one person acting the leadership role all the whole time, because collective leadership is required and essential, especially where your country is very diverse with different culture, history, and everything in difference and very diverse. In this kinds of a country with diverse country and colorful country, collective leadership is a must. And we clearly saw this collective leadership as one of the principle and value. And there are also non-discrimination principle also there to embrace diversity and difference without discriminating each other, also highlighting in the charter. And one more important thing is about the minority rights, how to protect minority rights. That's a very powerful when we talk about the federal, and it's a very important point. So when we look at the charter, when we try to establish a political system for the country, to bring and to formulate a new nation, and how the sovereignty will flow, where the power will flow from where to where, those are clearly mentioned in a charter as a guiding principles, how they are going to form the nation or build the nation. And there are 5 points. And on the first point, as I said, the sovereignty is very important in the UN as well. non-interference to the sovereignties of other country. With that principle, our country has been trapped under the military dictatorship because of the sovereignty non-interference policy of the UN. Those sovereignty of the country has been manipulated by the military up until now for more than 70 years. The sovereignties derive from the people and the state, from the state and from the people. And secondly, political equality, equal political representation, it has been clearly mentioned. Thirdly, talk about the right to state constitution. Rather than to define their own constitution that reflect their contact and their needs and their wants and their culture. Fourthly, it is talking about power sharing. What power would be shared at union. It's clearly mentioned about the power sharing at union level and state level. How they are going to share the power. Division of power is principle for division of power is clearly mentioned. And for the security and defense related issue right now, so in the past, draw the history. When we talk about security and defense, it's under the military. It's under the jurisdictions of military, completely 100% under the jurisdictions of military, who are acting like a military like a detector, and they fail to protect the properties and the lives of the people. They fail to protect the rights of the people as a military. That's why security and defense is also very important. That defense and security need to listen to the civilian government elected by the people. That security and defense should answer the civilian government. And it has been clearly mentioned in the charter, especially when we look at the charter. Regarding with regardless of which religion has how much follower or such, there's no such thing. But to ensure universal equality across citizen. So that's why in this charter, the charter member, when we look at the charter members, there are also women, youth representative, women representatives. Are they? And all the courageous organization pushing the revolution to the next step. And on the other hand, we also have ERO, the involvement of ERO and participations of and contributions of ERO also clearly there. So charter is, I would say, quite comprehensive. There are many areas that we still need to develop. How to form a state or federal unit. Those should be discussed in the future constitution. Those need to be answered in the future constitution that reflect the freedom, liberty, and justice of the people, that longing for by the people. And it should be in the hand of the people and should be the responsibility of the public, not just written up on the people, including NUCC and all the leading agencies who are leading the revolution, including CRPH and NUG and all the ERO. Their role is also very important. Not just charter should not be on a shelf. It need to materialize into the real life, because federal is a collective leadership rather than individual one party or one entity leading. if we can embrace and bring meaningful collective leadership, then we will be able to establish the further democratic union that we would like to establish. Thank you, and allow me to stop here. Thank you so much for Siama, as he has been clearly present about the charter, federal democratic charter. It grants the equality and self-determination and self-autonomy. This equality and self-autonomy and self-determination has been granted by the charter to establish a federal union toward federal constitution building based on the tolerance and patience and constructive feedback to each other, then we'll be able to achieve our goals and we'll be able to establish the federal union that we are aiming for. And thank you for your suggestions and recommendations. Regarding with the discussion points of Shima and other speakers, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, or maybe you can also ask question in a chat box or comment box. So we also would like to read out the comments and different perceptions. In Myanmar, we have 135 nationalities, and who are driving in this Spring Revolution. We have been clearly saying that who are the one who try to split the unity of the country of those 135 nationality. And it said nationality. It said equality, but and we don't want to compromise and give away. In our country, it is also easy, but 90% of the mass are coming from the Burma, and there are many comment and different perceptions out there. Like in the brainwash by Nevin doctrine, who has been invaded other independent territories and putting them as a second class citizens. So the original land or the ancestral land need to be returned to those indigenous and ethnic nationalities to decide their own destiny. Many Burmans are out there who don't accept them as ethnic nationality, and they thought they own the country. Many people who cannot change, but many Burma cannot change their mindset, who thought they own the country and they are the superior to other ethnic nationalities by fake school history or manipulated by the military who has been brainwashed and misleading the Burma majority and many of the Burma peoples that they make them feel like they are the owner of the country. So we would like to go to the question. The first question is, in order to move towards to the federal, would that be easy to unite? Because if we have a two body when we have two people, and three body when we have a three people, how are we going to change our mindsets? This question I would like to refer to Sima Monelidi.
I was having the internet connection interruption. If you would repeat the question, please. Now, all the ethnic people are talking about federation, but for future direction, would everyone be on the same page? Because people have a very diverse opinions around that. What would be your opinion? Thank you. Well, talking about my opinion, in responding the question, um, the question, the person who raised this question mentioned about this difficulties in unity, difficulties in solidarity. Well, based on the based on Myanmar context and based on Myanmar history, we have to realize that everyone lived under dictatorship. Everyone was raised by the um, system of discrimination. The experience that you have had, the information that you have had, the the understanding that you have had are all imposed by very discriminating system by the military dictatorship or by various dictatorship. We are brainstormed. I'm sorry, we are brainwashed by all this discriminating idea. So that's why we are facing the difficulties in solidarity. So we end up having no trust among ourselves. We are ending having concern on ourselves by looking at the others. We thought that we are different. I think in the end, we might talk the same thing, but we may have the different approach. But then again, it is very important to look beyond than what we experience. If you climb the mountain, you may clean the bushes in order to climb the mountain, or you may go the different route to reach to the mountain top, or you may just simply climb the mountain top. But as long as we collectively can reach at the top of a mountain, we are on the same journey. So the underlying principle, the underlying values are very much important to learn among ourselves so that we would reach to our common goal. So the leaders and those participate in this revolution needs to have a good understanding in terms of the worried of the people, the concerns of the people, and the directions of the people. So it is very important for everyone to participate in this revolution as many various forms as one can. It itself is the solidarity or unity and common direction that we all have in going to the right direction. Thank you very much. Thank you. I also would like to share my opinion as well. We may have the diverse opinion and argument will be there, conversation will be there. We may have the different opinions, I'm sure. It is the nature of the human, it is the nature of the society, it is the nature of the democratic society. Democracy is all about diversity, democracy is all about argument, dialogue, conversation. You may have three groups over two people, it does not matter. As long as you respect the other, as long as you acknowledge the existence of the other, then there will be solution for everyone to walk together. All this argument, all this conversation, all this dialogue are there for better improvement. Burma may have different opinions. Non-Burma people may have different opinions. With the different opinions, argument will be there. But then again, the results are to be positive contribution for the future federal building. So, with these different opinions, complementing each other, helping each other, coordinating, collaborating each other, is the way to all of us to move forward. I also have another comment. It says federalism, it's to be made sure based on federalism, democracy. Kachin area, of course, will be the Kachin state. Kayin people, places will be Kayin state. But then again, what about the other people in Kachin state? What about other people in Kayin state? Would there be a need to have the state referendum to call or to establish such structure, such unit? The more diverse people there, the more difficult the governance and administration would be. So, it is very important to have self-determination at the state level. And in the federal army, proportional representation of the participation by the ethnic, it's all important. So this is my comment. And again, I have read this comment. Now I welcome the response on this comment by Rose. Maybe you might want to give your brief opinions around that. This is quite the point that the commenter made. Like you mentioned, we discussed already about federal value, democratic value are there in our future democratic federation. This is our ultimate goal. In building the ultimate goal or in traveling to this ultimate goal, we need to have strong collective discussion dialogue. We need to have a collective structure, and we need to have all sort of collective structure in the forms of units, in the forms of federal army, in the forms of judiciary. So all of these are very pragmatic matters to discuss about. So whatever federal unit we would have, as long as all these mechanisms are strongly in place, the federation in the future will be functioning, I believe. So there are talks. We are talking about the federal unit, Burma unit as well. The bigger the Burma unit would be, the more difficult it would be to manage, right? Somebody already mentioned that having, if all these 7 regions are to be organized as one Burma unit, having it would be quite a problem because the characteristics, the need, the problems of these 7 regions of Burma are very different. So yes, we are to build Burma unit, but how is the subject for the collective dialogue that we would need to have. The bigger the unit, the more complicated it would be in terms of executive, in terms of legislative, in terms of judiciary. But principally speaking, it is important to have the Burma unit, but the how is our collective future work. Thank you very much. And I also would like to raise another question. That question is read as such. Many talks about federalism, but then again, what would be the future of citizenship in Myanmar? We have the mixed blood, and what if the mixed blood would ask for their own unit? Then what would be the impact? For that, I would like to invite Sia Dalit for your brief comment. Thank you very much.
In order to answer this question in brief, regarding with the designation of ethnic nationality, according to the 1980, these current designations of ethnic cities are based on 1982 Citizen Act. Whether we are ethnic nationality or not, their respective ethnic nationality has their own rules and their own procedure for membership for their community. Whether you would follow your family name of your fathers or your mother, different ethnic have their own ethnic nationality, has their different ethnic or different a group of people have their own custom and tradition to decide their member. They have their own custom to decide their membership of the, so when we are going to the federal, whether who are which ethnic nationality or not, whether citizenship right shall be decided by the federal level or union federal level. When for that we need to review. When we look at the current national ID card, it said 1/2/3/ that represent different state and region, and which township you are born can be traced back by just looking at your ID number. In the future, we can transfer this kinds of identification to the state level or by their own rules, and Burma can decide their own, ethnic can decide their own. Then we will be able to reduce the complication with our NRC card. And no matter with how much blood they have been mixed, in this modern day, in this modern age, there's no pure blood because of the cross marriage and intermarriage. And when we check your DNA, there's no 100% pure gene in this world. Our gene has been already mixed up. It depends on how you consider yourself. It's a key rather than different state and region can decide who belong to their nationality and their tribe and their group. When we look at for the future federal, we have a sub-autonomy, sub-determination, and sub-rule in the future federal. Who will rule this state? We will rule our own state. And what political right they have. If you have the right to run office in certain state, do you also have the right to run an office in other state? Whether citizenship should be decided by certain state and region based on their own custom and tradition, then our citizenship will be diverse and will embrace diversity. then many problems with the identification will be solved if we share this power to the state level. That's all for my answer. Thank you. Sia, thank you for your answer. And the people who raised the question in the comment box may also feel satisfied with the answer of the speaker, I hope. And thank you so much for your question and for allow us to conclude our tonight talks from at here, For that, we would like to give a floor to our speaker to have a favor remark. First of all, I would like to invite Sima Muneli to address some closing remark. Thank you so much all to bring peace for the country. Federal is very important for our country. Federal system is very important for our country. Now we are in the revolutionary stage. There are many things, a lot of works to do in order to build the future federal union we want. We need to win this revolution. That's why let's contribute and let's take our own respective role and let's help each other. Especially let's share information to each other. That is also very important. And that is my favor remark. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Sima Rose as the next person to address the favor remark.
Thank you very Thank you very much for having me invited in this um, talk. Through this Spring Revolution, we are building the future democratic federation. It is a duty of each and every one of us. And all the values, all the opinions, all the visions are to be discussed through thoroughly, very frank manner. We want federation. We want meaningful federation rather than the facade federation. So there are political dialogue happening in finding the solution for the future. So it is very important to have comprehensive participation in such direction. So it is very important for each and every one of us to play our own role in whichever way that one can. The more difficulties that we are facing, the closer that we are there to our solution. So all the solutions are required to build our better future. So it is very important for everyone participating in whichever way one can in this revolution, and I call your participations and engagement in that direction. Thank you very much. Now, Dalit, please come up with your final comments. Thank you. I would like to thanks to everyone. I am very thankful to be in here talking about federation, building the federal unit. It's quite a difficult and complicated walk. Whatever we talked about in terms of potential, whatever we talked about challenges, we are not talking about new things. They are all old problems. All these problems were there in the past, in different countries, and by our own. Learning the past difficulties of the other countries, can lead us find the solution. One must not be discouraged in facing the problem because each problem has their own solutions already there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. I would like to encourage the audience. You must be tired after all these 2 years, and you must be in a very difficult situation after being like this for almost 2 years. But talking about our future require the elimination of the dictatorship, the military dictatorship. In removing the military dictatorship, each and every one of you are important. Each and every one of you are a piece of sand or a block of brick that we need in building our future. So, dear public, please don't give up. Please participate with as energy as you have for the success of the revolution. Having said that, I conclude our conversation in here. Thank you.